Good afternoon and welcome back to Destination Chautauqua. This is the second in a series of about 7 interviews that we're going to be doing on local political candidates for various positions here in Chautauqua County. I'm Doc Hamels and I'll be your moderator for the entire series as we hopefully will plan this out. And as you saw earlier with our prior guests, that we're going to be asking various questions and asking opinions on various topics and so forth. This is a live show, and if you do have to leave in the middle of this, it will be rebroadcast throughout the week as well, so you can catch it later on. And if you want to listen to the guest over and over again to get the fine points and find out what they really meant, you can have that opportunity on YouTube as well. All right, so I wanted to welcome Mike Ferguson to the show, and Mike, you're looking a little tired. What have you been doing lately, Mike?
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
No, we're in the fourth quarter here.
You're in the fourth quarter. Mike, you're running for county executive, and just knowing what I know about the races and politics and all that, it's a busy time for you, and I do thank you for joining us today. Where do we start, Mike? All right. Why don't you give the folks a little background, and I encourage you a little background because we only have like 27 minutes here and we want to talk about topics and issues, okay?
Definitely.
So introduce yourself to the viewers and maybe they don't know you.
Certainly. Hi everyone, I'm Mike Ferguson. I've been a Chautauqua County resident for the past 30+ years. I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, and thrilled to see the progress that Western New York has made. And I believe that we can bring that same progress here. I came to Chautauqua County over 30 years ago in part of media, but also had a career not only as the general manager of the Jamestown Jammers, at that time the Detroit Tigers Farm Club, but also ran the Jamestown Savings Bank Ice Arena, where we brought some of the biggest events in Chautauqua County history here to the community. Now, how does that rank with regards to governmental experience? We've been working with state, federal, city, village, and town governments and negotiating during that time, during that career, at each and every level. And at that time, when I was asked to run for this particular position, I had the opportunity to sit down with my family and ask if this was the thing that they wanted me to do as well. I knew in my heart I always want to continue to make Chautauqua County better. And it was my daughter and my wife who sat at the dining room table and said, "Dad, no matter where you've been, you've always left things better than you found them." And that's all I needed to hear. With the support of my family, I've been able to jump into this race, and I believe that we have great things on the horizon for Chautauqua County.
Well, that's the shortest version I've ever heard you give.
I try to keep it under an hour.
At Rotary, your list was going on, but thanks, Mike. Mike, people are going to say, or have said, well, you've never held political office before, so I think that's fair game to ask that question, but I'm going to ask it in a different way. You don't have to be a politician to get elected. You just have to have a desire to run and get 50 plus 1 vote, 50% of the vote plus 1. So assuming that you do get 50% plus 1, how does someone not in the political system navigate the political system for the first time?
Well, as I just mentioned, John, everywhere we've worked, we've had experience working with government. Mm-hmm. Whether it's keeping the $26 million Jamestown Savings Bank Arena viable in the community, where you're constantly working with Kathy Young, Senator Young, Governor Cuomo, and others, to keeping a minor league baseball team in town, and the constant improvements that are placed by Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball, as well as the fact that I also sat on the Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau for over 8 years and also served as their president. So all during those times, we dealt with sales tax and bed tax and tourism and economic driving, economic development.
So you know the jargon, you understand
we know the jargon,
the concepts.
And quite frankly, we know the players in New York State as well. So we know the people that we're going to have to work with and we have to deal with. So while we may not have sat directly at the table, we've worked with the table. So we know how to navigate. We know that our government is mandated quite heavily by state demands on our budget, as County Executive Horgan is dealing with right now. So the amount of money that we really have to use at state level, at county level, You have to be creative, you have to have new vision, and you have to drive new revenue streams. And I believe we have a history of doing exactly that.
I'm going to ask you a question that I've never asked a candidate before. You ready?
Uh-oh.
Mike, I didn't give you these questions ahead of time, did I?
No, you did
No,
not.
I did
That's
not.
fine.
All right. When I hear you talk, you use something that we always teach people to use. I hardly ever hear you say I, okay? And I always hear you say we. That's very unusual to me, okay? Because most politicians come in here and, I shouldn't say that. Many times on TV, let's go further, let's make it broader. Many times you hear politicians say, I did this, I want that, blah, 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 blah. You always say we. Who's we in your life? Who is the we?
Wherever we've gone, whatever we've done,
See,
we've always developed a
the we.
team. And when I mean we, it's exactly that. I've always said that. You never want to be the general manager and you never want to be the coach in sports because it's a team effort. So your successes are developed by a team and your failures are developed by a team. I've already started looking at people that I think I would choose for this administration. Some people are already in administration and some will be new to administration. But we bring together a team concept. It has to be collaboration. It has to be across political aisles. While I'm a proud Democrat, I realize that Chautauqua County is a big, big community. And therefore, while it's big as a county, the population is probably equal to that of Amherst, town of Amherst.
Right.
So where we're not condensed, we're very widespread. So we need a team. And I believe that's how you run an efficient business and that's how you run an efficient government, is to have a team of people with the same vision. We did this at my current employer, which is Fredonia Place. 3 years ago, we had a turnover of employees of about 48%. We had an occupancy of about 85%. By pulling together our staff, by hiring people who fit a brand new culture, we sat down, we created a mission statement, a vision statement, and we put together a 7-point culture that drove that company and drives that company to this day. And in 2.5 years, we turned our turnover ratio is less than 11% for employees.
That's pretty unheard of.
And our occupancy is between 95 and 100% for the last 2.5 years, which is both of those higher than the standard, not only throughout New York State, but as nationally as well. And that's what we've done. My job, I tease, and I don't mean disrespect to firefighters, but I say it's sort of being a firefighter. You come into a situation where a company needs help, a company is maybe on a decline, not that Fredonia Place has been at all, but the arena and the baseball team and others. And you come in, you build the philosophy, you rebuild the mission, you get everybody on the same team, and you build a team of individuals that can move the product forward. In my case, once we developed that team, identified that management team, built the philosophy, put the boat in the right direction, adjusted the sails in the right direction, it was my turn then to move on to another project. And that's what we've done. And as my daughter said, we've always left it better than we found it. And I believe we can do the same thing with Chautauqua County government.
So when you talk about team, I understand if you're working in any of these companies and agencies and so forth. So who's on the team at the county level? Like the positions, not names necessarily.
Well, you know, there's a lot of people that fall under county government headings,
Right.
From DPWs
Right.
to the social services and so much more. Even when you're looking at renewing your driver's license, all falls under that. Not that the sheriff falls under my rulings, but it would they're part of that team. Every office in county government has to work together in synchronicity in order for it to be able to move forward.
So you're talking about department heads being the team? Or?
No, we're talking about everybody from frontline. I think one of the problems is, Doc, that we've heard, well, I haven't seen some people come through my office in 3 years. I've never met this person who is an elected official, and we're not pointing on anybody in particular, but we've talked to people who are not only on the front line, but also in the highest seats of government, whether it's town, village, city, and county. And I think you've got to pull the entire team together, and that's frontline folks, from the person who greets you at the DMV, right up to your deputy county executive, and say, where do we want to be 10 years from now, and how are we going to get there starting today? If today is January 1st, 2018, where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be in 10? And where do we want to leave the county for our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren? And I think once you set that mission, you build that team dynamic. I've taken away the terms of management, and we use leadership terminology, team leaders and that type of thing, because people work better in a group dynamic. And I believe the people who can tell us the most about how government runs on a day-to-day basis are those people who are working in the front lines. So their input is as valuable as mine or anybody else that sits on that floor in the county office building. And I believe it's time to sit back and listen to those folks and let them have a seat at the table, and also let them to take part in even something as simple as as complicated as the budgeting process, because they're the ones who have to do the work that we set on the table. So I believe we walk through the door shoulder to shoulder, and at the end of the day we walk out shoulder to shoulder, but the responsibility ultimately ends at that desk.
Some people would call that participative leadership style.
I would agree.
Okay, and that's kind of where I came from in my world, where you listen to people, you bring the team together, but the ultimate decision falls with the leader.
Yes, and everybody running for office, no matter what party you're on, no matter where you are on that ballot, nobody goes into this looking to do bad things or have bad results.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
We're all looking to bring something new, a new vision, and maybe hopefully speed up the process and learn how to cut through red tape. And I think a lot of that comes from creativity and vision. But you can only have that creativity and vision if you're listening to everybody on the team, and that's what we hope to do.
To use an old term, paradigm shift. Is this a paradigm shift that you're talking about for county government?
Yes. Yes, not to say it hasn't been done before, but I think it's always good after a number of years to sit back and say, where have we been and where do we want to go? Okay. And I think if you look at our county and the average age is rising, in order for us to continue to move forward, we have to look at the younger generation, our children, our grandchildren, and where are they going to be? Where do they fit in the picture? I'm seeing a lot of people as I go door to door, late 30s, early 40s, even early 50s, that have moved back to Chautauqua County from Florida or Virginia.
I agree with that. I've seen that.
But the reality is we're all a little long into our careers. Meanwhile, some of our youngest people have gone on to be entrepreneurs and have gone on to contribute to other communities outside of Chautauqua County, and in many cases outside of New York. We have to bring those people back. We have to celebrate the companies that are currently in place. Monofrax was honored the other night at the Chautauqua County Chamber of Commerce dinner, and it's a miraculous turnaround. Now that not only was a turnaround from the staff, they also worked very closely with local and state government to be able to turn that around. But isn't it much better to turn a company around and keep them here rather than lose that company and lose that employment opportunity? So we congratulate them, and we think that there are more opportunities to work not only with larger companies that are here, but also celebrate our entrepreneurs. I don't care if you own a coffee shop. You're investing in the belief that you can make a living in Chautauqua County. And those people need to be thanked for that investment. They need to be supported and heralded so that we can continue to have young people do more of that. And it doesn't matter what business you bring to the table, you'll have our support.
Okay. If you were elected and you could have ultimate magical power, what would be two things you'd do within the first 6 months, if possible?
I'd wave that magic wand and end the drug crisis.
Perfect segue into my first topic. What would be the second? We'll come right back to that.
New job opportunities.
Okay.
And when I say new job opportunities, I think we all, myself included, have been guilty of looking at the traditional. Let's bring steel back. Let's bring automotive, automobile companies into town. Those aren't the jobs of the future, unfortunately. We've priced ourselves out of the steel business. I'm in full support of those steel workers that are currently working,
Right.
and and very appreciative
Keep what we got.
of those companies that are here. We hope to. I have an issue when we say, when a politician comes in and says, we're going to create new jobs. We don't create jobs. We can create an atmosphere that is conducive to entrepreneurial growth, to growth of companies that are currently here. And I would love to see our steel and manufacturing companies continue to grow. And also make it so that there's new companies that can come into our community. Think about this. Our larger retail stores are deciding to look to the future, and their future is online. Out of every $10 spent online, 6 go to Amazon. That's a huge piece of the pie. So we just lost JCPenney's in North County. Kohl's is announcing that they're closing most of their stores. They're saying that there'll be a demise of some shopping malls, almost 60%. They're not going out of business. They're choosing to take a piece of the online sales pie. So you'll lose some of those brick and mortar stores, which is even more important that we have the mom and pop and local entrepreneur stores supporting our infrastructure. But there are opportunities that lie there. And I will turn over every stone. When I stood on the steps of County Hall just across the street and accepted my run for this position, we talked about this. Sales, distribution, fulfillment. Nowhere else in Chautauqua County than right up the street on Route 86 and in the North County at the Fredonia-Dunkirk exit does 5, 20, 60, and 90 come together in Fredonia-Dunkirk and 86 here. Those are amazing transportation hubs. The 90, 5, 20 will take you all across New York State, down the East Coast.
Did you say Ripley?
And Ripley. We'll get to Ripley shortly, because we have, as my friend Mark Thomas says, we have a plan, and we have a plan for Ripley as well. And the same thing on 86 that goes from the heart of the Big Apple right through Chautauqua County into Pennsylvania. Those are very desirable locations for distribution centers and fulfillment centers. 3 weeks after we said that, Amazon announced that they were building in Lancaster, New York, in a shovel-ready site, and that building would be open by September in time for Christmas, Amazon's Christmas sales, and employ 500 plus people.
Wow.
It opens last week. It's on now. And there are many, many other opportunities, not just with Amazon and eBay, but all those other department stores and everybody that is deciding to seek online sales. That's one. How does that, we go back to how drugs affect that with the magic wand. It's not a Chautauqua County problem.
Not at all.
Exclusively. We're seeing this across the country.
It's worldwide.
And it's now pandemic in nature, that it's every single income level.
Right.
But you have to have a plan. Part of the reason why I'm running is you just get tired of opening the paper and hearing, this is bad, something has to be done about it.
Another 28-year-old overdose.
And I've spoken to our sheriff, to our police officials, to mental health officials, to our leaders in our hospitals. And we've had some great symposiums. We have some great meetings. Everybody comes together, even FBI and Homeland Security, state police, sheriffs, local police, and health officials, and we come up with a plan. But when we go back to our offices, the day-to-day of operating gets in the way. I'd put a project manager in place. And what we would do is the best ideas, what is working at every single level. How can we integrate those plans with one another, with each agency? How can we revive and revitalize our court systems so that we're not expecting people to be rehabilitated in 3 months, which is nearly impossible to do? And where can we put long-term residential recovery units? One of my proposals is Brooks Hospital, which with the building of the new hospital will leave Brooks with some significant openings. And there's a nice beginning to a medical corridor there. We are already seeing some units in Jones Hill, and UPMC are doing some wonderful things as well. Let's combine these in concert with other plans, eliminate those plans that are not working, put together an agenda, and add a timeline to that agenda. And the project manager's duty is to keep in touch with these leaders every day to make sure that we're on time, that we're on task, and that we're fulfilling what we need to do, which is putting a dent into this problem, because it also hurts our workforce.
All right, so people listening right now say, hey, Mike, that's wonderful. Taxes are high. Where are you going to get the money to do this? You're expanding government.
New revenue streams. We're not looking to expand government. We're looking to bring in new revenue streams. So again, that works for every person we retain, for every new person we bring to the community. That gives us an opportunity for new sales tax, for property tax. We sell more homes. We drive more revenue. That's one of the only ways the county can generate, can save and actually lower property tax in the future. And also, to be able to do projects like this, is to creatively look at ways to bring new revenue. As I said, in some cases our hands are tied behind our back because of the state mandates. So we look at the things we talked about. We looked at how we brought things like the World Junior Hockey Championships to town, how we made the Jamestown Jammers as famous as they were at that time, how we drove drive revenue for Fredonia Place and increased new revenue streams. We look at operation, and we look at shared services over consolidation. We can't be hypocritical and say we have to have people stay here and we have to create new jobs and yet eliminate jobs.
Right.
Not to say that consolidation does that at all times. I believe that there are some people that may not be in positions that they could best serve our community. So possibly reassignment as opposed to losing those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking, somebody said, well, it sounds like you're talking about big government. No, in fact, if we cut anywhere, it would be in government, because I think that we have too many layers. We have too many committees. I think we can condense some of our economic drivers between the IDA and economic development and others. I think that we might be able to condense that a little bit, make it a little more county-wide, and also a little more focused. When we're sitting here saying that we're losing $100,000, we were $100,000 short this year on keeping the lake where we needed to be. We were about $90,000 short on the Chautauqua Lake Partnership that wanted to do projects. Our Chautauqua Education Coalition, which I believe in, couldn't quite get the monies that they really wanted and needed to be able to get those programs into schools. Then I don't believe we should be investing in golf tournaments and bicycle races. I don't believe that's the duty of the Industrial Development Agency. Those events, and this is coming from a gentleman who produces events, shows, concerts, that drive sales tax, that drive bed tax. I understand the importance. I think that would have been more the duty of the Visitors Bureau, or an entity of the Visitors Bureau.
And a better bang for your dollar, perhaps?
Yes, invest back into the community. Mm-hmm. I'm all for events, and I will gladly support the web.com to be here another 20 years, and we will find a way to do it. But when we had the World Junior Hockey Championships, which brought the 4 biggest hockey powers in the world, including all their media, and more, and more, and more, we did it without a dime of bed tax money. We didn't ask for sales tax revenues. We asked for none of that. We went out and we sold advertising. Mm-hmm. Some pretty large advertisers stepped up this year. And I realized that our commitment this year from the bed tax was significantly lower than last year, but far more than we've given many events that have been here for a very long time. So I think the focus of where we spend our dollars, after all, your tax dollars, my tax dollars, are hard-earned. We put a lot of time and effort into contributing those taxes back to our community. And we expect that they're going to be invested back into the community, be invested wisely, and that we'll see a return on investment in those taxes.
Okay, so who on your team does that job?
It's the responsibility of all of us. And like economic development, I believe, is between the economic development team, our IDA, and our legislators. I think we really have to look at what our focus is. Mm-hmm. What are we trying to accomplish? There's been a lot of flag waving about victories, and yet 3.5 years after we announced NRG, it's still sitting without being fully operated. Okay. I am thrilled to see that Athenix is coming to the North County, but we've now delayed yet another
groundbreaking.
Now,
who's we in this case? Who's prolonging this?
I'm not sure who exactly is the single entity that you can point fingers at. I think it's, if you listen to the media and you speak to people who are involved, it may be partially the state's fault. It may be part of a process that they're going through in Erie County, because don't forget, one of their offices, one of their bigger offices is in Erie County. And it may be the delay of things like making sure that we've rezoned that property in Dunkirk. And one of the folks that we talked to said, well, we were waiting for them to come to us. When you know that this project is on the table, they've come to you. There's no reason to hold off on rezoning. And there's just example after example. The Great Lakes Cold Storage Unit is another example, in my eyes, of a failure. When you talk to people in current administration, they will say, this is a victory.
I'm not familiar with this project.
The cold storage unit came to the city of Dunkirk almost 2 years ago. They wanted to be near Fieldbrook Foods because they are one of their largest vendors.
Okay.
The project was initially earmarked to go into a residential area in the city of Dunkirk. The gentleman who brought it here, who owns several similar cold storage unit facilities, saw a lot of kickback from the community about putting it in a residential area, was willing to do the things that it took to address those issues, but gracefully said, okay, let's look for another place. The IDA tried to take them to Sheridan Park industrial development, or the shovel-ready site. The site wasn't large enough, didn't fulfill the needs. It went back again to the city of Dunkirk, and now it's been, in my eyes, pawned off on the Edgewood location. The Edgewood location has been owned by the county since 2009. Should be shovel-ready. In their eyes, it is. And yet, the vacant manufacturing building that was there sits empty, has had at least 4 to 5 fires. In some places, is filled with garbage. And a shovel still has not gone in the ground. When you talk to folks, they say, well, he's going to benefit from brownfield credits. Try telling that to people who are unemployed and been waiting for this business that was willing to break ground 2 years ago, that there may be a benefit to brownfield credits. We should have been ready, which goes back to my argument that, in my eyes, Chautauqua County is not ready to do business yet.
All right. Mike, you've made some great points here today, and I hope the viewers get to know you a little bit better in person, more than just a name or a picture in the newspaper or whatever. Mike, you got 16 seconds. Go for it, and then let's wrap up.
My family and I have called Chautauqua County home for over 30 years, and I've raised 5 children here. For those of you who know me, you know that everything we've been doing in our career is to make Chautauqua County that much better. If you vote for me November 7th, I promise you we'll come to work every day, use your tax dollars wisely to reinvest back into Chautauqua County and continue the great work that's been done in the past. I thank you for your time and hope you'll consider me for County Executive November 7th.
Mike, thanks for taking time for being here today, and I hope the viewers appreciate for you taking the time to tell them a little bit more about yourself. Folks, we're signing off now. We're going to continue on with our series in another half hour. I'm Doc Hamill signing off for Destination Chautauqua. My guest today has been Mike Ferguson, running for County Executive. Take care, and we'll see you in a little bit. Bye now. Thanks.